and they were hunting this. They were butchering this camel and then cooking it. And I was like, that is absolutely fascinating. Such a unique animal. And they were cutting into the hump. I don't know if you ever seen. Have you ever been around?
Oh yeah,
when they butcher a camel?
We butchered a double humped camel in Mongolia.
Oh, go to that.
It's just made out of pure fat.
Yes, it's a giant fat mound. Like a dummy, I always thought it was like that's where they keep their water.
Like a big reservoir.
Yes,
like a canteen.
Yes.
But no, it's dense.
Yes.
It's big and dense and thick. Yeah, and so we tried that in Mongolia. It's basically pure fat, and people like it there. It's rich and it has a lot of calories.
Yeah, and the meat. Bourdain said the meat was delicious. He ate the meat. I forget what country he was in when he did. I think he was in Egypt, and they killed a camel and butchered it, and they all sat around together, and they laid it out on this giant tapestry, and they all sat down and ate camel together.
Camel's delicious. And I think it might be even better than beef.
Really?
Yeah, it's really good, and it has just a very clean, neutral taste. I think sometimes it depends on what kind of beef you're getting. Sometimes beef could take a little bit of work to make it not so beefy, but camel just had a really clean.
It takes work to make beef not beefy.
How do I explain this better? So it doesn't have, because beef can have some strong flavor to it. Like,
that's so fascinating. All this shit you've eaten, and you're like, beef.
Well, maybe I ate beef
beefy.
in some weird places, but what I mean is, okay, you come here, you get brisket.
Right.
That's nowhere near the initial form of that beef.
Of course.
It's been treated and seasoned, and it's been handled for hours and cooked for hours.
Right.
And what I mean is beef that is, I think beef takes some skill to make delicious. Like pork, I think pork is more easy to cook. Around the world, I see people just throw a whole pig over fire. It's got tons of fat. It's got that thick skin to seal all the juices in. Mm-hmm. It's hard to fuck up a pig. But if you don't know what you're doing with beef, it's easier to fuck up.
That's an interesting perspective that I don't share. I feel like beef is pretty easy to cook.
How do you cook it?
Well, mostly, I'm on this carnivore diet for the entire month of January where I just eat meat. Mm-hmm. All I've been eating all month is meat and eggs. Yeah. And one time I had sushi. I cheated one day because I was going to dinner with my daughter and she likes sushi. But for the most part, I think, I guess if you ate tough cuts, then you have to stew it or things along those lines. But domestic cattle is pretty easy to cook.
Well, how do you prepare it?
Most of the time, I use what's called the reverse sear method. So, I have a Traeger grill, one of those pellet grills, and I'll set the Traeger to 265 degrees, which is fairly low. I put a meat thermometer in it, and then I'll slowly get it up to about 110 degrees. And then I use a cast iron skillet, and I get that cast iron skillet very hot, and I put beef tallow in the skillet, and then I sear it like very hot pan for about 2 minutes per side, depending on the thickness of the steak. And then I'll let it rest for about 10 minutes. Then I slice it, and then I'll put kosher salt on it.
So to me, that doesn't sound simple at all. And I think it's simple for you because you've done it many times, and it's a routine you're accustomed to.
It's pretty simple.
I think if you gave the average person a steak, they would just either throw it on a grill and maybe cook it too much, or they'd throw it in a skillet, and they wouldn't have the delicious sear that you have.
But it's simple if you just follow instructions. It's like that. I do it so often. It's just like take the meat probe, stick it in the steak. I salt the steak, generally with kosher salt or a little garlic salt as well. And then I just wait.
Sure.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it down to a science, though. And I eat a lot of wild game too, which is more difficult to cook. Like wild game, I'll slow it down even more and get it to 225, and I'll put it on 225 degrees, and I'll get that up to about 100, a little lower temperature, and then I do the same method where I just sear it, cast iron with beef tallow.
That sounds nice.
It's nice.
I'd like to try that.
It's very good.
In Vietnam, I rarely cook. I'm so dumb. I bought $1,000 grill, and I never use it because food is so incredibly cheap there. You can go, we could drive 5 minutes and get high quality Wagyu steak. Steak better than the American Wagyu, which isn't real Wagyu.
It's not?
American Wagyu. So the real the real Japanese Wagyu, like that DNA is never going to be in the USA.
Oh.
So they have some DNA that they've crossed with American breeds, and it's a version of Wagyu. That what the Japanese have done expertly over time is create a brand around Wagyu beef. And I've been there. I went to Kobe, Japan, and I got to see the farms, and they're not feeding them beer or playing classical music or any of that bullshit. No. It's all about DNA and food too. So they feed it good food. But
if they're feeding it good food, is it good food for the cow? Because one of the things that always disturbed me about that is that seems like you're eating an obese person.
Right.
You know, like you're eating someone who's you're eating an animal that's basically been fed something that's slowly killing it.
It's food that's good for the result that they're going after.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good question, because it's like, is that marbling? That's what makes the Wagyu so expensive and so renowned, is this intramuscular fat, this web of fat throughout the protein that's kind of evenly dispersed. It's very rich, very delicious.
Yeah.
And you just need, you don't need a big steak to feel satisfied, because it's
so much fat content, so many calories.
Right. So it's hard to say if they had a completely different diet, would that fat not be there? I wonder about that. I think they're doing everything in their power to make it as valuable as possible, but I don't think that. Sorry, the honey. I think I'm high now.
You all right?
No, I think I'm okay.
Did it get you?
No, I think that it's all about the DNA, and I think the real secret there is years and years of breeding. I went to one of the shops, one of the auction houses where they grade. It's amazing. Japan's an incredible and unusual place. So you go to an auction house in Japan and they have to judge all the meat. And so they're not, at this point, it's a half of a cow, and they have like kind of a computer system, like a big piece of hardware that they put up to the tissue. It does some kind of a reading, and it weighs into what they grade it. So you're familiar, I'm sure, with A5. A5 is the top of the top, but there might be A, B, C, just all these different ratings that the beef can get at that point. So I think they're doing whatever they can to get the highest rating possible. I don't think the beer does much, or the classical music, or the massages.
Do they sometimes use beer?
I don't think so. I think all that stuff is really good for like Thrillist articles marketing, and I mean, just like so much stuff in media these days, it's just how do we have a clever selling point? Yeah, this machine right here.
Oh, whoa. Oh, it's like a CAT scan or something. This is wild. That's wild.
Yeah, super cool.
Oh, so look how fat that is. Oh, my God, that's so fat. There's so much fat in those animals. That just seems to me like I'm so used to wild game, like wild elk, which is like a lot of what I eat.
Very lean, right?
Very lean and rich.